Now, among all of the latest scandals, it's been revealed that Peter Mandelson, that's who we're talking about, as I just alluded to, leaked confidential Downing Street documents to Jeffrey Epstein when he was the business secretary. This man was so enamoured by power, just like, what's her name, that other character, Sarah Ferguson. This pair of greedy little piglets, they just loved the money. They loved being in the presence of money. And of course, they also realised that, you know, if you need a few quid for your partner or for your failing career or whatever, just ask Jeff. It's an open checkbook. And that's often how it worked, quite literally how it worked. But when you get into the territory of sending private conversations or issues that have come from Downing Street onto somebody outside of Downing Street, you're in altogether very different territory here. We'll speak to Alexander Larman in just a second, author and US books editor at The Spectator. First, Simon Danczuk is with us, former Labour MP, now member of Reform UK. Good afternoon to you, Simon. I mean, I thought the Mandelson story, you know, we kind of, at the time when he was a cabinet secretary, not once but twice, possibly three times, I think. He was in and out like a robber's dog, this fella. Always getting fired for something, dodgy loans, passports, you remember it well too. But then he was palmed off to the EU, nice cosy gig as a commissioner. It's a very powerful role, as you know, over there. And then, of course, a few other bits and pieces. He becomes the ambassador, but all the while most of this is going on, of course, one of his best mates is a convicted paedophile who he's still in contact with, even as we hear today, sharing confidential Downing Street information from the Prime Minister. That's sure. I mean, the other stuff might be, you know, a little bit tabloid and amusing, but this must cross a line, Simon, I would have thought.
I think all of it crosses a line, to be quite honest, Ian. I think there are real questions to be answered here, not least by Keir Starmer. You've got to bear in mind that Peter Mandelson was brought back into the very centre of government because he's very close to Morgan McSweeney, who your listeners will remember is the advisor to the Prime Minister. So Morgan McSweeney is the closest senior advisor to Keir Starmer, and he was mentored by Peter Mandelson. And you might recall that Mandelson were actually involved in the last reshuffle that Keir Starmer had. It was reported that Mandelson was going into the back of Downing Street to help with the reshuffle that the Prime Minister had only a few months ago. So he's been at the very centre, and then he was brought in as US ambassador to get the Chagos deal over the line in Washington. So he's been at the centre of all this, this government. And what we've seen is that Starmer seemed quite happy to have Mandelson on board, even though he knew he'd been friends with a convicted paedophile. It's only now that it's come to light that there's been some sort of alleged corruption involved. As you point out, these documents have come to light that Mandelson has been leaking, and he's also been receiving money from Epstein. And that looks to me like potential corruption. Now, the Prime Minister's answer to this is to say, oh, well, he should stand down from the Lords, and he will get a senior civil servant to have a look at the information that's been leaked. It's wholly inadequate from Starmer, I have to say. He should come out and say, I am going to have him removed from the Lords. It is possible. So he should have him removed from the Lords, and he should call the police in. That's the reality. There's potential corruption here. He should call the police in to investigate.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mentioned just at the beginning this sort of addiction to powerful people. Of course, under Blair, he famously talked about we're quite relaxed with the filthy rich. I'm paraphrasing there, but it was on those lines. And he loves that. He's very at ease and comfortable being with the plutocrats and those that have got a few quid. That really seems to float his boat, Simon.
Yeah, that's how he's built his reputation, isn't it? And it's gone before him in many ways. I was speaking to a former Labour MP earlier today, and they were saying that, you know, that younger people in Labour, Morgan McSweeney, they mentioned Matthew Doyle, who used to be Starmer's communications director, who's now in the House of Lords, Wes Streeting, admired Peter Mandelson. They thought he was a great operator. You know, they worshipped the ground that he walked on. But he's clearly a significantly flawed character. And not just, and you know, he now describes himself as having had an association with Jeffrey Epstein. They were intimate friends. Whose friend's house have you walked round in your underpants? I mean, that's, you know, you just don't do it.
Well, indeed. And of course, all of this would be, you know, for many people would be okay if it predated anything that we knew about Jeffrey Epstein. But of course, it doesn't. And even staying at his house, I think, while he was in jail, for goodness sake.
Yes, and that's the biggest issue. I genuinely believe that some senior Labour figures have a blind spot when it comes to child abuse. And I don't say that lightly, it's true. You've got the Prime Minister prepared to accept Mandelson, a very close friend of a paedophile, to be the US ambassador. Yep. You've got Starmer when he was in the Crown Prosecution Service, failing to prosecute Jimmy Savile. He failed to prosecute more rape gang perpetrators than he could have done, and then he doesn't want to have a national inquiry into the rape gangs. And then Matthew Doyle, his communications director, who is just put into the House of Lords, went out campaigning for a paedophile in Scotland. I mean, there is a blind spot at the top of government in terms of child abuse, and I think it needs addressing.
That's a really interesting point. I think one we will pursue, I'm sure. Simon, great to have you on as ever. Thank you, Simon Danczuk, former Labour MP, now a member of Reform UK.